This is an overview of the lesson Exploring How Institutions Shape Prosperity. The 2024 Nobel Prize winners in economics argued that effective institutions are the foundation for economic development. In this lesson, students will participate in a simulation so they can experience that for themselves. This is lesson 4.2 in the Global Connections unit within Econoful's one-semester on-level high school curriculum. The first half of Unit 4 focuses on economic development, while the second half focuses more on international trade. In the Activator, students are asked to review several policy proposals and decide which three would be most effective and why, as well as which one would be the least effective and why. Once students complete the Activator, you'll collect the responses and keep them until lesson 414, at which point students will reflect on the extent to which their responses have changed. Students are provided with this quote from Charles Wieland to illustrate that although economists generally agree on which factors do and do not determine a nation's wealth, there is no universal agreement as to which are most or least important. Because each country has a different set of circumstances, there will never be a one-size-fits-all approach. Hand out the Unit 4 overview if you'll be completing all or most of Unit 4 with your students, and if so, highlight that the summative assessment descriptions are right here on the unit overview. The learning objective is to describe the relationship between the efficacy of institutions and standard of living. At this point, students are placed into pairs and the startup simulation begins. Each student will have their own copy of a student handout, and each pair of students has a playing card with the face cards and spades removed. To ensure variety in the simulation, distribute approximately the same number of cards from each of the three suits and a mix of even and odd numbered cards. Ideally, students are seated near pairs with different suits. This is what the student handout looks like. They'll read over the instructions, and optionally, you can provide them a moment to come up with a firm, such as a wind turbine producer or a fashion producer, to increase their buy-in for their business's survival. Scenario 1 is business licensing and permits. Your business is ready to launch, but you need to obtain the proper permits and licenses from the government to legally operate. So after reading the scenario, we'll show the results for the odd number cards. Students will read over their outcome and track their prosperity points. If time permits, we recommend reading the outcomes out loud. However, if that's not possible, the debrief will reveal the differences between the countries. So first we'll show the outcome for the odd numbers, and then the prosperity points. Then we'll go into the evens, give them a moment to read, and then show the prosperity points. For this business, they lost 4 points in the first scenario, so they started with 20 points and now they have 16, and they'll do the same thing for the next 5 scenarios, as well as circling the emoji that best represents their reaction. Here's a photo of this lesson in action. And this is an example of what a completed handout looks like if the firm was located in a heart country and had an odd numbered card. Educator Liz St. Lawrence implemented this with her students, and you can pause here to take a moment to read how her students responded to this exercise. Following the simulation, firms operating in each country are asked to briefly report their final prosperity points and how they felt about the rules of the game in their country. Along with the debrief, this allows students to recognize the spectrum of success that existed within the individual countries and across countries. Suggested responses for the debrief questions are included in the lesson plan to support this conversation. Now we'll move into some specific real-world examples. I'm going to skip over most of these slides, but we want to make sure to emphasize that businesses can succeed or fail in any country. Many factors influence a firm's success. However, firms and countries with ineffective institutions face greater systemic challenges compared to those in countries with effective institutions. Students are given a short article to read and consider how it supports the unit big idea. To wrap up the lesson, students are introduced to the 2024 recipients of the Nobel Prize in Economics, whose research directly relates to one of the Unit 4 essential questions: why are some countries richer than others? If you're running short on time, this excerpt and/or the article that I just showed could be assigned for homework. You can find this complete lesson plan with the slides and the handouts, everything you need except for the playing cards, at econoful.org. If you try it, we would love to hear how it went. We have a link to the feedback form, in the slides as well as in the lesson plan, and you can always reach out to us with any questions at info@econoful.org.